Hey everyone, Fletch40 here. So I'm going to be doing a review of The Last of Us Part 2, share my personal thoughts, opinions, how I reacted to the game and what I thought about it. So The Last of Us Part 2 was released in 2020, developed by Naughty Dog, and was written and directed by video game developer Neil Druckmann. It is the latest Naughty Dog game that has come out, but is it the best when it comes to the production value and time and care and detail that's put into almost every Naughty Dog game since all the way in the Crash Bandicoot games from the 90s throughout the Uncharted series. So I still think that the best Naughty Dog game still is Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. I still It's hard to say whether the production value in this game is better than that one, but I had a blast with Uncharted 4. I thought it was expertly made. Basically a perfect adventure game with an almost perfect story. It had so many great moments, an incredible chase sequence, lots of great set pieces, and overall just very, very well thought out and staggeringly detailed environment design. And even though the game is linear, there are several parts of the story where you can explore an open map where there are several will be like you dropped off and you can explore several islands and see if they have any treasure and secrets. And The Last of Us Part 2 does kind of follow that same formula of how there's a lot of linear moments, but there's also quite a few moments where you get to explore open spaces and try and figure out what's inside these areas and uncover what's going on in these areas. So the main story, and well, hell, it is one hell of a story, I'll say that right off the bat. It follows the story of Ellie a few years after the events of The Last of Us 1. Now, before I get into this, I just have to quickly gloss over what I think about The Last of Us 1. I think The Last of Us 1 is an almost perfect game. I did have a few gripes with its controls, a couple of the weapon interface controls, but the story itself is basically flawless in my opinion. It had a really important message to tell about like the nature of humanity. I guess even towards the finale of this game, which I thought was fantastic. It was the type of narrative in this game that you really didn't know what was around the corner. Anything could have happened at any moment in time. And the end goal of The Last of Us 1 is always in mind. You have to get to the St. Mary's Hospital. But it was a very unpredictable, I couldn't predict where it was going to go, and the way it ended and its finale did really have me on the edge of my seat that few video games are able to pull off for me. So if you haven't played The Last of Us 1, I highly recommend that you do, especially before you play this one, because there's a lot of setup that you need to know in order to play the second one. But I mean, it's not compulsory, but I would highly recommend that you do that before you play this one. And I mean, the reason why I played The Last of Us 1 before this game was basically the same reason. I wanted to catch up on the story because I only played that game like last year. But anyway, the Last of Us 2 picks off a few years after The Last of Us 1 left off. Ellie has grown a bit older. I think she's like 18 now. And Joel is still quite a big influence in her life. They are basically just residing in Jackson in Washington State of the USA. And even though Ellie cares about Joel, she kind of feels that he is a bit too clingy to Ellie, like she's kind of trying to be like her dad when he's clearly not, and like telling Ellie how to live her life, and this frustrates her. But anyway, a few hours, maybe only like 1 or 2 hours into the game, a very unexpected thing happens where a young woman called Abby beats Joel to death with a golf ball club. And murders Joel for reasons of the choices that Joel made at the end of The Last of Us Part 1. And from this point on, the game kind of becomes like this revenge story, which is also showed in the trailer of The Last of Us Part 2. The trailer for The Last of Us 2 was pretty minimalistic in its style. It was just shots of Ellie playing her guitar that Joel lent her, and then Joel comes into the room and says what she's up to, and she says she's going to kill every last one of them. And it does entice you to play the game to see what those people actually are and why Ellie seemingly hates these people. And so, yes, it is a revenge story, and I'm kind of have mixed feelings about revenge stories in movies and games. I kind of feel like they've been done to death. Like, we've all seen stories about revenge. And my personal feelings on the emotion of revenge is that I kind of find that revenge is a really useless emotion. It doesn't really help you with anything, and it really just seems to make matters worse. I personally, in my own personal life, have held a few grudges and have been tempted to lean into that emotion, but in several occasions, things have happened in my life. Whenever I've tried to lean into that emotion, it just seems to make everything worse. And when I see people wanting revenge, it just doesn't really seem to sit right with me. Though even though it does make some exciting fiction, I just feel like it's become a bit redundant in the world of storytelling. We've seen it done in certain movies and shows. We've seen it done in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it was pretty well done for a kids show. But like here in this adult game, it can come across as being a bit immature. Though I think the message that this game is trying to get across is that the human mind can be easily consumed by these emotions, and it can cause you to do really terrible things and kind of almost brainwash you to do things that are against your character. So I do understand the way it was used in this game, and it really actually does show the damage that these deep-rooted negative emotions can cause, which is obviously what is shown in the game, and obviously what this game is trying to tell. The cycle of revenge, how it just spreads from person to person, and it does nothing but make everyone's lives worse. So yeah, this isn't a happy game. I think that is very obvious from the start. This is quite possibly the darkest video game I've ever played. And I have played quite a few horror games. I've played Dead Space, I've played Bioshock, I've played and even like games like Mass Effect. Even though you can like go down evil paths, they never seem to be this serious. Like this, even when you're evil in Mass Effect, there's like a sense of dark comedy to it all.
What are you looking for? You're not one of Nasana's mercs. Who are you?
Answer my questions and I'll let you go.
Look, pal. Even if I knew where he was, I wouldn't tell you.
Not the answer I was looking for.
I've got nothing more to say to you. If you shoot me, my team...
How about goodbye?
But there's like no comedy in this game whatsoever. There's like not even one single light-hearted joke. There are dark jokes in this game, but it is a very heavy game that does present the player with a lot of themes and topics that aren't really seen in many other video games. Basically, the first half of The Last of Us 2 is focused on Ellie's viewpoint of trying to get to Abby, and funnily enough, for being, showing in like the trailer of how resentful Ellie is, which is revealed to be for Abby. When you are looking for Abby, she actually doesn't really seem to be that revenge-driven. She just says, I've got to see Abby, I have to get to Abby and talk to her. And so it feels like in this part of the game, this early first half, maybe third of the game, it seems more like Ellie just wants to find Abby and just like say something to her, or just like warn her or something, or just like talk some reason into her or something. But it doesn't look like that she's like out for blood, like she's hunting her down and wants to kill her, or like wants to like interrogate her or even torture her or stuff like that. That immediately changes when she actually finds Abby, and from that point on, it just freezes there, and then you start playing as Abby of her getting up to that point in the game to where she meets Ellie. So it goes like about like 2-3 days back in time, kind of like to the same point of when Ellie, just after Joel was killed. That's where it rewinds back to for Abby when you play as her. So I think I should talk about the several factions that are in this game. There is like just the group of people that Ellie and Joel are with, and those are just basically like just the normal survivors of Jackson trying to take every day as it comes in their fortified town to fend off the infected. Then you get the WLF, which is like the Welfare League's thing. I never really remember what that stands for, but that's kind of like the group of people that are against Joel and Ellie, and the decisions that Joel made to get Ellie out of the hospital before the Fireflies would do a surgery on Ellie that would have killed her, which would have also saved the rest of humanity. But Joel realised that this was very evil to do this to an unknowing child, and this wouldn't be worth it, which is a massive moral dilemma that's presented to the player at the end of Last of Us 1. But the WLF are basically just the just against Ellie's group, and they're trying to track Joel down and also trying to find a cure. Ellie thinks and Joel thinks that the Fireflies are dead, but these group of people is basically just kind of like the spiritual successor to what the Fireflies were trying to do, and they are seen as a villain. Though another group that is teased a lot in the early hours of the game, which is finally revealed towards the end, are the Seraphites. Now, if you thought that the WLF were bad, you haven't seen nothing yet. I mean, like, the WLF are evil, but they have reasons why they're doing what they're doing. They have goals and they have explanations. The Seraphites are just crazy. They are insane. They are basically a religious cult gone wrong, to the extent where the Seraphites are kind of like the embodiment of like your worst nightmare of what a religious cult could be, which is definitely, it's fictionalized, but like it is they are really like dialing the evil level up to 11 with these guys. And the scariest thing about the Seraphites is that it's never truly really revealed in the game what they believe in and what they're fighting for. The only snippets you really get is that they're kind of like extreme naturalists, where like they have given up on living in modern urban life and just want to go completely back to nature, living in wooden huts, chopping down trees, hunting animals. So they're kind of like these primal extremists. But it's not just that. There is a religious aspect to it, which was started by like this one woman, kind of like I guess she was trying to like, she was writing stuff down into like a book where something about love, something about united love, and anyway, it's I mean, you can obviously see that it is a perversion of what normal natural love should be. And not just that, it has like religious themes in it too, like saying that the old world was nested with sin and that we want to stay as far away from that to make our own little society. And you can see like later on in the game just how backwards this all is and just how evil the people really are. They literally just have like this bloodlust to kill anyone who doesn't follow their belief system. They are raiding other factions. They are hunting people down. They are brainwashing their children. Anyway, it's just a very scary type of enemy in the game that hasn't really gotten under my skin in kind of a way that any other video game enemies have had. The only other similarity I can really find is the unitologists from Dead Space. And now they were also very, very scary, but a lot more is revealed about what they believed in. It was all about the marker and about Altman and worshipping the marker and thinking the marker was a sign from God. While the Seraphites are much more mysterious, and I kind of like that. I kind of like how you're kind of left in the dark of the whole cult system. But you know, it's fiction. You shouldn't really be thinking too hard about it. But it's great that these that Naughty Dog really thought about trying to make an enemy that actually really is actually pretty disturbing, and as well as making you really loathe these enemies. Like, when I was in the same room with these enemies, I did feel very tense at getting past them, and they like communicate in whistles, and they almost like telepathically know where they are, and they are very well acquainted in their communication system that you don't completely understand. And yes, there is a very heavy sense of dread when you are near these types of people, and especially when you get to, spoiler alert, their hometown very late in the game, which is called Seraphide Island. Now, this entire area, to me, was just insane. It was so scary and intimidating, yet it had kind of like this epic scale to it. It was very cinematic, the way it was presented. I found the set piece where you're escaping this island riding on the horses to be really exhilarating and really just really intense. I mean, this game was very intense. And when I'm talking about intensity, of course the first half definitely has its intense moments, but it feels a lot more relaxed, a lot more slow. I mean, like after the death of Joel and you're just wandering through Seattle, I mean, of course you're fighting infected and you have to fight enemies, but it does feel relaxed compared to what the rest of the game has to offer with Abby. This is when the game gets like crazy intense. I mean, the Seraphites hunt Abby down, they try to hang her, she escapes with one of the kids who's been indoctrinated with the doctrine of the Seraphites, and you kind of get to get little bits and pieces of what the Seraphites are about through this character. So yes, there are two child characters in this game called Liv and Yara. So Liv is a kid who kind of rebelled against the doctrines of the Seraphites, and because of this, the Seraphites basically hate him. To the point of where they actually kind of want to kill him, which is pretty sad. And Yara, who is his older sister. So how Abby becomes entangled with the Seraphites, also the scars of what they also, the other factions call them, is very interesting. I am going to talk about several scenes in this game that did hit me pretty hard. Definitely something that definitely was completely unexpected and kind of took me by complete surprise is how they actually went there, where you're in a Seraphite village, and even though it's not shown, but something happened between Liv and his mother, where her mother suddenly like went into like a fit of rage when Liv told her that he didn't want to be with the Seraphites anymore, and it's very obvious that she like got super angry and she tried to kill her own son, which is really dark when you think about it. But it's revealed that Liv retaliated and actually killed his own mother in self-defense. Now, this scene really did get to me quite a bit when I first saw it. It was something that I was completely not expecting while playing this game. I mean, I knew it was going to be dark, but I've never seen that in any game or even any movie. This is like the first time I've ever seen something like this presented to me in a work of fiction, and it really stabbed me in the heart of just how dark it was. But Naughty Dog decided to put this in the game because they felt like it was crucial to the plot. I do feel like a lot of people were too scared to talk about this because of just how raw this scene was. And it was raw, it was incredibly raw. And it was also very sad. But it did happen and it was very impactful. It was a very impactful moment that definitely stuck with me after the game was over. The game continues after this, as I also said, which is a very intense scene escaping from the island. Very, very well done, that whole sequence. It really blew me away. How just all the fire. It kind of felt like this place was hell, really. I mean, like, as being this cult, it kind of felt like they were already in their own hell. It was such a terrible place. It felt like it was even worse than hell. It was just a really scary and really dark place that Naughty Dog were really hit home, for me at least. The spotlight is taken off Ellie for a very long portion of the game at this point. I mean, this portion of the game almost goes for like 6 hours from back to back. It's very long. A lot of people complain that it's too long, but I feel like it has to be this long so you really get to understand Abby's ordeal and her side of the story, why she hates Joel, what caused her, compelled her to hate Joel, and why she cares about these Seraphite children. She is often told by the WLF that she's a bad person, but the Seraphite children see otherwise. They see good in her. So she is a pretty complex character, very conflicted. And it's cool how you're trying to, as Ellie, hunt down the enemy, which is Abby. Then you see Abby isn't quite the enemy. She's now fighting other enemies to her, to what she thinks is enemies. And it's kind of a very interesting look of like the individual people, what people think is like the enemy, what is evil, and how people think different things are. And just how all these conflicting things like just mash together into this crazy game. But of course the game moves on from Seraphide Island, and of course Abby snakes her way all the way back to Seattle, where she finally bumps back into Ellie. And this is the moment of the game that really started to confuse me, because this is the moment where Ellie actually gets into an all-out brawl with Abby. And as I said before, she didn't feel very revenge-driven. I mean, of course, she said she was going to kill Abby when she saw Joel being murdered. But getting to Abby, she didn't present that way to me. But of course now, she's completely snapped back into revenge mode and is now out for Ellie's blood, basically trying to beat her to a pulp. So that's how much she hates Abby. But of course, the brawl doesn't end in any of them getting too seriously injured. None of them die, and they kind of go their separate ways, which we all know is going to eventually come back together for a rematch. So it goes, it gets a bit confusing at this part. It goes a bit backwards and forwards. Abby has to get something for Liv, because Liv is ill. She has some sort of, I think maybe it's a cancer or something, and she has to go into the hospital to get these ingredients. And this might, I really like Seraphide Island as well, but I think this might actually be my favourite portion of the game. This game really reminded me of Dead Space and Dead Space 2, of just how dark and secluded it was, getting into the really deep parts of the hospital where like the worst of the infected were like kind of just left there, because this is like the outbreak, and this hospital was just not ready for what they were about to be, what was about to unfold with this virus. And it gets really tense. You get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and you get some pretty scary audio logs, which also reminded me of Dead Space. And then you get to the Rat King. Now this thing was just crazy. It completely threw me off guard. It was really scary, really disturbing, horrifying, but I also found it to be a really awesome boss fight as well. It was so tension-filled, so action-packed, so fast-paced. You had to really think on your feet, and it got my heart pumping. It was just a really, really good boss, and it was definitely a highlight of the game for me. I mean, I love the design of this thing, just how mangled they made it, how it's like all these infected bodies mashed together into like this abomination. And it's really good horror. It was just a really well crafted battle for me, very thrilling. Overall, just really well done. So once it gets to the battle that I said before, it kind of, after that, it kind of goes forward maybe like a month or two, where Ellie is on this farm with her girlfriend. Yeah, I actually forgot to mention Ellie's girlfriend. So Dina's her name. And so Dina is Ellie's girlfriend. It is revealed in this game that they are a lesbian couple. So they're kissing and stuff. Apparently I heard this did bother quite a few people. I mean, it didn't really bother me. But anyway, she is on the farm with Dina, and everything seems to be pretty hunky-dory. Feels like the worst of it is behind her. She's just trying to live a normal life after trying to move on from the trauma that happened to her. But it is revealed that she has actually been haunted by Joel's death. There's this sequence where she has like this really creepy, hellish flashback of feeling like she wasn't there to save Joel. And this compels her to go out and seek Abby once again. And this time, you really see that she is really wants to kill Abby this time. But she only actually goes out because another character comes in and tries to convince her to go for Ellie. For Abby. They know where Abby is. It's where she's highly probable to be. So he kind of gives her the extra kick to get her going, and Dinah gets angry with him, but Ellie decides to go anyway, and Dinah strongly disagrees against this, which is probably what the player would be doing at this time too. It seems like this is not going to end well for both of them. But the game continues. You get to California, you find Abby, and you get into the final hand-to-hand fight with Abby, which is really epic and very blood-pumping, very tense. But again, it ends with her not finishing the deed, which kind of reminds me of that episode in Avatar where Katara doesn't kill the man who killed her father. It kind of feels similar to that. So she lets Abby go, and she goes back to the farm where she realised that everyone is gone except for her. So the entire house is empty except for her room. And in the final shot, we see her playing her guitar once more and walking away from the farm. And at this point in time, you see the firefly symbol on her guitar, and it's pretty obvious of where this is going to go. I do really feel like, in my opinion, she has kind of got to the end of her rope, and she is going to go to the Fireflies, opt to have that surgery which is going to kill her and save humanity, as what she thought should have gone down before. After this is revealed to her, this is where I feel like the story is going to go. She's going to go to the Fireflies and kind of go to her own death to try and sacrifice herself for humanity, because she was strongly against what Joel did. She thought she wanted to die in that hospital after it was revealed to her, but it's obvious that Joel knows that she's not thinking this through, not taking her life into her own hands, which is basically the entire dilemma, which is the entire universe of this game revolves around what the choice that Joel made in the hospital. If there is a Last of Us 3, I am pretty optimistic there is going to be a final game, because this is the second game, and most things are in a trilogy. I mean, this is Naughty Dog, this isn't Valve. I mean, Naughty Dog have proven that they are very eager to make sequels and make number 3s and 4s to their games. Of course, Uncharted is over now. They're not going to make another Uncharted games, but it does feel like there is one final block of the story that they are going to tell. Though I'm not putting all my cards on the table. This could be the end of The Last of Us, but I do feel like that there is a bit more to tell after this game ended. So yeah, that is The Last of Us Part 2. This, which was revealed to me, this has turned out to be possibly the most controversial game that has been released this decade. I mean, I'm not talking about the start of the 2020s because it was released, but I mean like since like, let's say, like 2010. There have been very few games that are able to spark up a very large amount of controversy, but this game did, which is probably because of all the themes I just talked about then, involving the Seraphites, the religious cult theme, the cycle of revenge, the cycle of who you think is evil, who you think is the enemy, how different people want to take different factions down because of reasons that they believe they are not good people. Just a very dark and very sobering tale of the dark side of humanity is really shown in this game. And I still think it is a really good game. I do feel like it does have quite a few flaws. There have been several videos made on YouTube about this game, of how they thought the game should have played out. I watched like an hour-long video of someone rewriting The Last of Us Part 2, where Joel doesn't get killed, and the game takes a very different turn. If I know what this video is, I might link it in my description for you to see. But yeah, a lot of people had a lot to say about this game, what they thought it got right, what they thought it got wrong. And currently now, it does have an 8.5 on IMDb, so it is still very well received by a lot of people. I mean, The Last of Us 1 is a 9.7, and that's an almost perfect score. So, not 8.5 is definitely a very well step down from that score. I don't really know of very many people that don't like The Last of Us 1, but I'm pretty sure there are people out there. I'm not judging you if you like it or don't like it. You can like and not like anything that you like. But you can see that the reception of this game was a lot more conflicted than what the first game was. And Neil Druckmann did get a little bit of flack for that. But overall, I think I will give this game, for what it did well, an 8 out of 10. It was very well made. A very high production value for this game. You can see many hours were put into this game of just making it creatively in its vision and what it was trying to achieve, all of the areas, trying to make it look as very realistic as possible. And I think production-wise, it is probably teetering on maybe a 9 or even a 10. But when it comes to the story, yeah, you could say that the choices in this game were very conflicting choices. There was probably several times on the creative drawing board where they felt like maybe we should put this game in this direction, put it in this direction, but we don't really know. Maybe we had to flip a coin or something, because it was that hard to think of a story that would satisfy everyone, and it obviously didn't. So, but at the end of the day, it's a video game, and we play games for enjoyment. And I guess when games don't fit our prerequisites of what they should be to be an enjoyable experience and actually throw us some really heavy curveballs and some really heavy themes that we probably think about for quite a while after we turn the game off, of course it's going to cause a lot of heated debate. But overall, I enjoyed the game. I thought it was a very well done game. I'm excited to see what else Naughty Dog have up their sleeve, what else they want to tell with their future games, whether they'll create any more IPs, whether they'll finish The Last of Us as a trilogy, or they'll just keep it open-ended as it is. But overall, that's my opinion of The Last of Us 2. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. And as always, thanks for watching and take care.